Hello, everyone. Here in a hotel in, of all places, Orlando, Florida. Here for a board meeting for a huge science fiction group that I'm with, the International Association for the Fantastic and the Arts. I'm the treasurer, which means everybody likes me because I give people a lot of money. Here and there. And so I wanted to get an introduction to the class up for you, just a brief introduction to set the stage for what we'll be doing over the next 8 weeks. And One of the big areas of science fiction and fantasy, but especially science fiction, deals exactly what this new focus for this class I've been teaching for 15 years or so. Um, the new focus for the class, which is going to be on what's something I called the dystopian fantastic and young adult fiction. Um, it's a huge, huge area now. It's been growing and growing, and people are looking at it a lot more seriously, not just as YA literature, but as a sophisticated literature. Now, this hasn't always been the case with YA novels, especially with young adult science fiction novels. They've been around this area, but since books like The Giver, which is a dystopia, which is not a very nice place to be. They don't have that, which doesn't mean they have to end on a horrible note or anything the way, let's say, 1984 does. We'll be looking into that a little bit, and there are reasons a lot of children's literature of the dystopian nature has tried to end happy and has ruined the books because logically, as we'll talk later on, the way the text is set up to reach for the happy ending kind of logically is at logical odds with the rest of the book, because the idea was, well, they're youngsters, you really can't push them. But in the 60s things started being pushed with people like he wrote the Iron Giant, which you may have seen in the movies. Very, very good movie, which touched on, in the 60s, areas of the Cold War. Um, and I can't remember his name, but I'll think of it later. He's famous basically for having been the Sylvia Plath's husband when she killed herself, and he's been uh, unmentionable, like Voldemort for decades. But he's back. He's passed away now. But he said, children deserve to hear the truth. But always with him, in a lot of the literature, like the Iron Giant, half his literature he wrote. Ted Hughes is his name, was for youngsters. But sheep die, and you have, but usually for young adults, there was a kind of a prophylactic, a protective coating, so that you wouldn't scare the bejeebies out of people. So you have these dystopian things like Bah, which is humorous, but it's about people die off and sheep take over, and with the metaphors available there about being like sheep and things along those lines. But it's not until after, in the 70s, when Pullman, a guy named Pullman, wins a prestigious British Book Award. It may have been early 80. He wrote the Dark Matter series, a fabulous series of books, but it's been since then that people have been starting to take the kind of literature we're going to be looking at seriously as good writing, with metaphors and all kinds of the literary devices that we associate with sophisticated fiction. And you're going to find that these books do. And there are lots of awards now for this kind of literature. And most of the books chosen have won a slew of them. But I thought we'd start this time in the dystopian fantastic with The Hunger Games. Obviously, The Hunger Games has tremendous interest amongst readers and watchers. And like much of what we're going to read, folks, the YA literature, as happens with The Hunger Games, attracts a substantial adult audience who also go to see the movies. The movie now, the other one will be coming out. So we call this crossover literature. Now I read a lot of it. It's an area I'm specialized in. One of my area of specialization is science fiction and film and literature. Uh, and also some of the horror, those of you who may know me from, introduced a class last semester on zombie film, which is a really fascinating area with a lot of academic attention. And the same holds true for the Hunger Games and other dystopian fiction for young adult readers. Now, these books are not difficult to read. I read The Hunger Games again. I've read it three times at least because I wrote an article about them, and there's only one or two anthologies now out about it. And so to tell you that there are, these books do track a lot of attention. We'll start with The Hunger Games because they're well known, and even if you've read them before, you'll find it'll be very interesting to read them with a group of people. As I said, we have 8 novels, and if you look at the syllabus on both Blackboard and the college, our class webpage, the address for which I sent everybody. By the way, Safari won't work well for that for some reason. If you go up and look at the HTML address towards the end, you'll see numbers just jammed in there. If you delete them, the page will open. But I have no idea what's going on. But Firefox and others will open that. The syllabus gives you at the end called a tentative schedule, and another of the links there says, one says tentative sets. Tentative schedule subject to change, and there you'll find the books listed, the weeks we read them, and I'm not planning on a tremendous amount of notes this time. What notes I put in there you'll find growing as over the course of this first time in that tentative schedule, because I'll put stuff down there for you to think about. A lot of it will grow out of discussion threads. So the first 3 weeks we read The Hunger Games, and then we're going to switch to one, I believe number 4 is The Knife of Never Letting Go, is our only book that takes place on another planet. And that one's about a lot of things, but one of them is about information, and you'll find this is a big area in the Hunger Games as all. And then we're going to read Feed, which I think you'll all enjoy. It's a book that I have taught before, and on the regular class webpage, you'll find even videos there talking about that particular book. I'll certainly move you in that direction so you can take advantage of them. In addition, we have, let me see, there's one by Schusterman called Unwind, again, all these are about many things, but one of them has the commodification of the human body, dealing with science and technology, but also with extremism. There's been a civil war over abortion in the United States, and science has made it so you can have transplants without any trouble, and we'll see how that develops. Feed, the Feed is a computer program into which youngsters, especially the more upper middle class and whatnot, is what William Gibson called in his cyberpunk wet wired. That is to say, we're connected to the machines. And to a degree, this is true in a couple of the other books as well. There's another one called The Other Side of the Island, and one called Carbon Diaries. I think it's 2015 or 12, and there's another one, a sequel. And this one's about, both of them have to do with environmental disasters and the consequences. All dystopian. One of them, The Knife of Letting Go, has 2 other novels in creating a trilogy of books. Carbon Diaries, there's a sequel, Carbon Diaries 2017. And there is a sequel to Unwind, which I haven't read yet. A lot of these things are exciting for me because I've been reading all these books, and as we go along, I'll try to suggest other titles for you. But a novel a week shouldn't be that difficult. And so keep up with the reading. That's why I sent you the things early. You could actually finish a couple books before we start the class. Now, This class is a new focus, entirely new. The older class, the regular class, I should say, um, is also one I've been teaching for, I mean, this 14 years or 15, and this will be something new. I just wanted to try something different. And that one you can look at all the notes and anything you want. You can even download PDF files for the first half of the usual class from that I have up there from the Norton Anthology of Children's Literature. All the notes there about alphabet books, primers, chapbooks, fantasy, science fiction, fables, lots of stuff on fairy tales, ending with graphic novels and poetry. So if you want to get a little feel for all that, you at your leisure time, you can look at, there's hours and hours of videos as well as notes to go with those classes. So like I say, once you start this, you can add all kinds of notes. So the first time around, play it by ear and see how the videos go. Now, a few other things. One is, I'll have to correct this next year, and the other one on on Wednesday, as a matter of fact, Wednesday, I'll be going to Morocco for 2 weeks. I will have high-speed internet, so I'll be with you, not as many hours as I usually will be. So bear with me on that one, okay? And like I say, I'll have videos up for you. Just a few other things to go over with the syllabus. The syllabus is there for you to look at. You can check these things out, and it'll reinforce what I'm saying here. Each week, you'll have a quiz and a discussion thread. The quiz will have from 20 to 30 multiple choice and true-false questions about the novel we're reading. As a general rule, the quiz will be open from a Thursday until a Sunday. You can't backtrack. You can take as long as you want, but you have to finish it at one sitting. Now, I will also put up a video. And, if it happens that I don't get the video up until Friday or something, I'll just extend the quiz date. So don't worry, okay? And if it screws up, just write me, and I'll get to you really quickly, I hope. Usually I'm looking at the email every hour of the day that I'm awake, at time that I'm awake during the week. So I'll get back to you. So don't panic. Again, the video I'll make each week, it'll be about half an hour, maybe a little longer. I'll actually give you in the discussion about the book all the answers to all the questions that I choose. Okay, so I'll try to choose them that allows me to give a kind of a broad look at or at some and at the some specific things I want you to take in mind while you're reading. So I'll also make a video at the beginning of each week and maybe one in the middle. Over the book that we're reading. I might one half the book video, about talking about it, and then the second half. We'll just see how that develops, okay? The first ones for that will be up Sunday. I get back from here Sunday afternoon, and I'll be working on the class Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday before I leave Wednesday and try to get as much laid out as I can. So you'll have a quiz every week. Each quiz is worth 2% of your grade. So, I mean, if you read the material and listen to the video and whatnot and take part in the discussion threads, you should do quite well. Discussion threads are also one discussion thread a week, 2 points, 2 percentage points. Everything is weighted. So each quiz and each discussion thread is 2% of your grade. Read the discussion. I'm duplicating what's already written, but as a rule, the discussion threads, I like to read them and I like to interact with you on them whenever possible. So, you want to start early in the week. You don't have to have read the whole book or anything to start, but this is not, I really don't like this book. It's not just your opinion. This is critical analysis. And so you'll be doing that on your tests and your paper. In other words, what are the significant themes and things of this nature going on, let's say, in the Hunger Games? And you have all kinds of stuff going on in here, surveillance, you have a government, a dystopian government, you have a post-apocalyptic world, and you can look in there and look deep, because the book will stand close scrutiny. What's Katniss's or as Gail calls her, catnips. What's going on with her? What's her relationship with her mother? What's District 12 like? What are these districts? What about District 13? Who's Snow? What is the significance of the Hunger Games? Do you want to be thinking about these things? And the discussion threads give you a forum for that. Now, I want at least 2 paragraph, 5 to 7 sentences, at least 2 of them each week. That's a C. That's a 75 or a 76. The more you do, and the quality of the work counts, you can easily get a 10 every week. What you want to do is go the extra yard, though. You want to quote from the book to support something you're talking about. You want to go out and share internet links, and hyperlinks. You want to do all these different things starting in the week. Don't wait till Saturday and Sunday, because that's not discussing, that's just posting. Now, you don't have to make your own original posting. You can do very long and detailed and really get into it just responding to people, but getting out there is kind of fun. And then seeing how many people respond and where the discussion goes, you'll learn a lot from what other people have to write, and people will learn from you. So these threads are important. Again, not just with opinions, but within develop critical, logical kinds of things. Treat these books as important. And now, these kinds of things will help you with a paper that you're going to write. If you want it to be or you want to revise your paper, pick a book that you're going to write on and give it to me before 3 to 3.5 pages before the end of week 6, so I can ensure to get it back to you in time for you to revise. The revised grade always replaces the original grade. Now, if you go to class work on the class homepage, you'll see work from the children's lit regular class. Have a look at them, some of those papers about fairy tales, and see how they use quotation. They use critical ideas, and you'll find a lot of that online, to support their assertions about this major theme you're talking about in the Hunger Games, about the role, let's say, of media, the role of weapons making, as you're going to find that this will develop over the 3 books as far as the significance goes. You can write over all 3 books. You can pick one. You can pick one of the first of the 6 books we read and do an essay. If you do, let's say you want to go look at the second book or the 2 other books over from The Knife of Letting Go, great. You can do another dystopian novel and work with me, and we'll get a paper there. The other thing is you take a midterm and a final. The midterm and the final are the same. They're both obviously online and open book. I will give you prompts and ideas. Of course, the midterm question is going to be over one of the 3 or 3 of the Hunger Games books, plus I believe I can't remember now if it is The Knife of Never Letting Go, but don't worry. You'll take that in week 5. The midterm is, I'll give like 20 prompts and you'll answer 5 of them. I'll mix them all up in a pool, and you'll write, a good, strong, 7 to 9 sentences about the significance of a character or a quotation. I'll give you a video where I discuss them all. That's part 1, and you have to take that at one sitting. Part 2 is an essay. I'll give you the topic. You can work on that essay as long as you want during the allotted time and then post it. For all these things, I suggest you back it up in Word. If something goes wrong with the prompts, they freeze up. If I reset, I have to reset everything. That means there's going to be a new pool, and maybe you only get 2 of the 5 that you had before. But if you have them all, and go back and forth that way, we're in good shape. The final's going to be the same. It'll be the last week of class. I'll do things like Tuesday till Friday at midnight or something along those lines, and that'll work out fine. Again, look at those essays in the for the regular class to see the way that kind of the organization works. Again, I'll go through this idea as I'll put up some notes each week. nuts and notes. I'll put up videos to discuss with you, and sometimes more than one. There'll be one for the quizzes, and while I'm here in Florida, I'll try to make one to introduce the Hunger Games to you. But this is getting to be 20 minutes long, and I don't want to press the limit of your attention span for a repetition of other details. But I think this is a pretty damn exciting class. The literature is rich. Science fiction is a literature of ideas, and and so if you're writing a dystopia, what you're really talking about are contemporary issues, um, not always answered completely, but it's about possibilities. As Ray Bradbury, the late Ray Bradbury, used to say, that science fiction doesn't predict things. What science fiction does is to stop the future from happening. As in, you take a contemporary problem and you put it into an imaginative context where people talk about it, the dangers of the internet. All these kinds of things come to play in this literature. The Hunger Games is epic in its approach in many ways. Here you have a very progressive literature in the sense that it's not just about individuals and their desires. The war that eventually engulfs Panem is the name of the country after ecological and nuclear disasters, is in a complete war against capital. And so it's not just two people, anybody's. And the idea is that trying to change the world. And some people find it very, very disturbing. And we'll talk about that as it develops. And I find it to be one of the great draws of this novel for young readers, often discouraged with the kind of polarization they find in politics, and it makes everything look hopeless, is this idea of getting involved. And the fact that it can often be painful. We'll talk about these ideas as we progress. Again, dystopian doesn't mean it has to be completely depressing. But there are problems, and they're connected with social problems, they're connected with political issues, and no one of the books we're going to read, or combinations thereof, is really only about one thing. There's a lot more going on in Hunger Games than the kind of leadership that we have here, and you have to pay attention to that leadership too, and the role of the individual and the youngsters, and of course there's romance in all of them. I mean, that's basically a very important aspect of young adult life, and all the complexities that you go around, and you'll see that with Katniss and Gale and Peeta. But that's just the sort of the familiar thing. The familiar thing draws you into a world that wants you to believe in its possibility. This isn't fantasy, which is also about the real world, but it takes it from a different perspective. The dystopian fiction wants you to believe, has to make you believe in the possibility of the verisimilitude. And we're going to look at that closely as we go through. That is to say, it could happen. It's based upon the laws of it could. And political science, with respect to science and technology and feed, the idea here is to make it believable so it can drive its major points to home. As in the case of most dystopian fiction, these concerns have to do with social problems, have to do with religious issues, has to do with political parties, evil, power, things that happen in the daily life. Only we're in an imaginative world that the reader wants you to feel comfortable in, to drive in the points. So keep that in mind, that this is not just about some fantasy stuff. There's only one book with a rocket ship, and you only get to see a little one, and that's The Knife of Never Letting Go, which is also, though, about communication and family, and of course, yes, politics alienation, all kinds of things like that, including slavery, if you like, women's rights, all things that are very familiar to you. And it makes you think about them. And this will come through in our discussion threads. And you'll be thinking about these things as you read. Don't just say, okay, I got to get through this book. Look with specific things in mind. And I'll try to give you some ideas in the prose section of the weekly tentative schedule under each book. And I'll just throw out some ideas there, and you'll find kind of specific things to be looking at for the discussion threads too. Well, that's enough of an introduction. Forgot to tell you before, I'm Bill Clementi. I've been teaching at Peru State College for 20 years now. I'm a professor of English, and you can look on my webpage to see all the different classes I do teach. So write me if you have questions. Some of you already have. I'm always glad to recommend more books, and I'm always interested to hear what you're reading too. And these are connections you can make on the discussion threads as well. If you don't know this stuff, don't worry about it. Just jump in and want to have fun. I know when I taught science fiction, literature, and film, people had never read science fiction. They just thought it was kind of, blah, blah. And it turned out they loved it. And they knew what they didn't like, and areas that they wanted to pursue more on their own. And then this particular genre, you're going to find a lot of adult ones you like, but you're going to find tons of very interesting dystopian science fiction novels. It is the rage right now. Okay, enjoy the class, and feel free to write me whenever you have questions and whatnot. Sharing thoughts, don't worry about it. Use subject lines. I leave you with one more thing I want to remind you of, and one of them is look at netiquette on, this is in the syllabus, but netiquette is a way that there's a format that I want you to follow when you write me emails. And one of them is you must use a subject line, because I get tons of garbage. And if there's no subject line, I just go through and, click to delete. Write in clear, good prose the same way on your discussion threads. One of the things the class wants you to do is become a better writer. You'll find a couple helpful things for grammar and style on the web page too. Look into that. I'll point you out that stuff more as we progress. All right, well, I'm glad to have you in the class, and I look forward to a good, fun 8 weeks.